Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Folks, we are going to have a great show for you today. Today we start with the Joe Kahn. Joe Kahn is the executive editor of the New York Times. And Joe Kahn was asked by, we're getting by Ben Smith, one of the editors at the Semaphore. Let me put what the question was that he asked. He said, Dan Pfeiffer, who used to work for Barack Obama, recently wrote of the Times, they do not see their job as saving democracy or stopping an authoritarian from taking power. Why don't you see your job as we got to stop Trump? What about your job doesn't let you think that way? And the editor, the executive editor, Joe Kahn of the New York Times, gave an answer that sounded correct, but it's completely and ridiculously, willfully ignorant. But let's go ahead and put what his response was. His response was the following. Good media is a fourth estate. It's another pillar of democracy. One of the absolute necessities of democracy is having a free and fair and open election where people can compete for votes. And the role of the news media in that environment is not to skew your coverage towards one candidate or the other, but just to provide very good, hard-hitting, well-rounded coverage of both candidates and informing voters. If you believe in democracy, I don't see how we get past the essential role of quality media in informing people about their choice in a presidential election. To say that threats of democracy are so great that the media is going to abandon its central role as a source of impartial information to help people vote, that's essentially saying that the news media should become a propaganda arm for a single candidate because we prefer that candidate's agenda. It is true that the Biden agenda is more in sync with traditional establishment parties and candidates, and we're reporting on that and making it very clear. It's also true that Trump could win this election in a popular vote. Given that Trump in office, it will probably be fair. And there's very good chance, based on our polling and other independent polling, that he will win the election in a popular vote. So there are people out there in the world who may decide based on their democratic rights to elect Donald Trump as president. It is not the job of the news media to prevent that from happening. It's the job of Biden and people around Biden to prevent that from happening. It is our job to cover the full range of issues that people have. At the moment, democracy is one of them, but it's not the top one. Immigration happens to be the top on the polls, and the economy and inflation is second. Should we stop covering those things because they're favorable to Trump and minimize them? I don't know how it's supposed to work in the view of Dan Pfeiffer or the White House. We become an instrument of the Biden campaign. We turn ourselves into Xinhua news agencies or Pravda and put a stream of stuff that's very, very unfavorable to them and only write negative stories about the other side. And what would that accomplish? What? That answer sounds plausible, but it's ridiculous. First of all, when he comes out and he said that the biggest issue on the American people's mind is the economy, or first immigration and then the economy and inflation, those are the things on people's mind that they would insinuate somehow Biden is failing at, not because of Biden, but because of the skewed reporting itself of the New York Times and others. They're the ones that come out and they lay the foundation for the misinformation that goes out there to the American people. Yes, they make it see, they talk about immigration being the big issue and they report just superficially what's occurring at the border. But they don't occur what's the genesis of what occurred on the border. If they did talk about the genesis of what's occurring on the border and realize that it is policy not of Biden, but policies that's grandfathered to Biden, etc., then Americans would look at Biden to be blamed for the immigration issue. If they reported accurately that the people that are blocking any type of immigration reform from occurring to alleviate the problem are the same people that Donald Trump represents, then the American people wouldn't think that way. If they went ahead and talked about the economy the way they should, the inflation is corporate greed and it's calculable. If they went ahead and gave that information over and over again, the way they give the misinformation as if inflation is some magical thing that occurs just because there's money in the economy, then Americans wouldn't have the thought process that they have today. And we could talk about, given the facts as they are, and democratically having Americans vote for their best interest. But the same problem that he's talking about is a problem created by his entire paper. Well, not the entire paper. There are good folks in the New York Times who try to do some good reporting, but what they themselves are doing, and then they say, "Oh, but we are not here. We can't be biased towards Biden, etc." Nobody's asking for that. They're just asking for straight reporting, and what we don't get out of all these papers is straight reporting. If they did their job, then it would be okay. But the very naive portion of what he had to say, more importantly, is when he said, well, democracy is a third item on the chart. How doesn't this guy think through different levels of indirection? Can he see that if democracy is lost, the fourth estate, the newspapers, the accurate revelation of information by our news media is gone? Is he blind to that? Can't he see that that a free press depends on having a democracy? And if he is a paper of choice that is promoting or leaving a pathway for the one who would be anti-democratic to win, he himself is supporting his demise unless he thinks there's something in there for him. Again, Joe Kahn, executive editor of the New York Times. I have no idea what he's thinking about or how his thought process worked. But guess what? He did have a few good things to say about Biden. But of course, well, it has to be about war. The praises was for the war. Do you see the pattern here? You give him hell about the economy, you give him hell about immigration, you give him hell about democracy, but about the war, ha 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 ha, it is okay, baby. Because as long as we're dropping bombs on those other people, it is fine. It is fine. Okay, folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Please call early, 713-526-5738. I am taking calls now. I have a 12-minute piece to play, but if I get a call, I'll hold back on that 12-minute piece. 713-526-5738. Seems like Harry is in the house. Good morning, Harry. How are you doing this morning?
I'm in the house. All right. Well, before I comment on Gonzalo, I want to thank you for singing happy birthday to my brother. He's not feeling too well. He's kind of ornery this morning. I wanted him to call you and talk to you. And then he just said, well, Harry, look, I can't get a good night's sleep right now. And my mind won't work right if I'm talking to Egberto. So I got to get some good night's sleep. He's going to call you one of these days here soon and talk, because there's some things he wants to tell you. But it's just, I just pray that he gets better. I was praying for him last night when I was at Recharge the Week that he'll get better. And
He will. We command it. Go ahead, my brother.
That's right. Well, okay, I like what you were saying there, Gonzalo, the school teacher that talks about these issues. And Gonzalo, good morning to you. If you're still listening, because I like your calls. You make a lot of good points. And it just got me to thinking, and, Steve Hunter talks about this issue about the vouchers on UTalk as well. And I was just thinking about, Mike Miles, and I was thinking about this woman that called, they had an interview with her last week on one of the KPFT shows. I think it's that show that comes on at 9 a.m. And she was just talking about what a disaster Mike Miles has been. And then they had some other, I think some of the people who are running for public office here in the Houston area have been very outspoken and disappointed in Mike Miles. And she was going into, and I remember I talked to Steve about this last year, about when Mike Miles was up in Dallas, and things didn't go very well up there. But it's like I said, Egberto, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I talked about Greg Abbott. his plan is to destroy the public school system, and you got to vote people like him and Ted Cruz out because those people just are not interested. They're underfunded, like Gonzalo was saying there. They're about underfunding these public schools in the Harris County area, and I think Greg Abbott's big plan is if I can get mostly the black and brown parents to be frustrated with the public school system there in Harris County, then we can turn Harris County from blue back to red because they'll just move away. And then, as you know, with this voucher stuff, as you were saying there with the private schools, these private schools can pick and choose who can go to their school. And like you said, with the rich kids, that voucher just helps them because this thing that Abbott was talking about was his plan, I guess, $8,000, whatever it is, something like that.
It's about $8,000. Go ahead, man.
It's $8,000.
Yeah.
What you said? Yeah, $8,000.
Yeah.
That's not going to help. Yeah, that's not because those private schools and those charter schools are more expensive than that. And I've even heard the mayor of Politics Done Right, who called earlier, and it's good to hear from you, Johnny, as well. Johnny's very passionate and very outspoken and talks about Mike Miles' military background. This woman was talking about that. She was just very saying that he's got a military background. He has no interest in these young kids getting
wrap it up for me, Harry.
Okay, they just want to destroy the public school system, and that's why you got to vote people like Greg Abbott, and you got to vote people like Ted Cruz out. And I looked that up too when I asked you about that. If I had made a mistake, I think it was 1869 here in Texas that there are no term limits for governors, and I looked that up. Yeah, I went back to look that up. Okay, yes, so you guys have a good rest of the day, you, Howard, and Jack, and I'll keep listening, and I'll look forward to your 12-minute piece.
Thank you, brother. Let's go to Bart. Come on in, Bart. Brother Bart, you're on.
Yes, sir. Talking about the schools, the Cy-Fair ISD is one of the largest districts in the nation, and you know they have a $1 billion bond. They build all these $100 million buildings, sports stadiums, $14 million AstroTurf stadiums for each school. They have a police department that has over 100 brand new vehicles. They have these officers. I see them at the sporting events. There's 4 or 5 police officers watching, basketball games, soccer games, baseball games. Yet they're gonna lay off the librarians because they don't have the money or the budget to pay their employees because it comes out of a separate fund. So this does not make sense. But just to switch topics, I don't know if you heard that Troy Finner has been forced to retire, the police chief of HPD. He was threatened to be fired, I believe, by Whitmire because this 260,000 cases that were dismissed. And I wonder if you could have him on. I wonder how he feels about Sylvester Turner now, about covering all this stuff and about being a diversity hire. And I wonder how he feels about it because he's kind of made the scapegoat of all this.
Okay, let me just say one thing first, Bart. I was with you on the how these schools spend money on football and sports and all of that, and they're ready to lay off librarians. I'm with you. That is terrible. We have our priorities mixed up. But with all due respect, I am disappointed, very disappointed in you for the connotation that you had or have with respect to Finney and Sylvester Turner. Whether these guys do things that we wanted them to do or not is one thing. That's one thing. In other words, whether they did it, whether he knew about the policy or not, that's a legitimate thing to be on. But to immediately jump on the issue as far as a DEI hire, assuming that because we got a black police chief, the reason he was there is because of equity, diversity, and inclusion. First of all, equity, diversity, and inclusion are a good thing. Let me just tell you, I am a bit frustrated. I'll be honest with you. I keep my smile, but I'm a bit frustrated at your statement. The most insidious statement that a black man, a Latino man, a Caribbean man can hear is when someone like you, my friend, come out there and make a statement that assume that because somebody is of a non-white ethnicity or race, as we put it here, ridiculousness of race in this country, and they do something that may be wrong or you don't like, that it has something relative to the race as opposed to relative to just the guy screwed up or didn't do something right. That puts you into question, sir. I'm not done, sir. I'm not done. I listen to you completely without interruption. So you listen to me without interruption. Bard, you listen to. Go ahead and turn your radio down. Whoever has your radio on. Let me tell you now, Bard. I wrote a book called Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man, and the reason I wrote that book is because people, when you tell them that there are folks like you, my friend, who breaks down everything into this false DEI concept, etc., and you have to prove yourself once and over again. I've given instance of what I had to go through with a smile here in this in the workplace and in every other place. Let me tell you something. Both of those guys are absolutely and very competent. Both whether they did things that I like or not. I don't like a lot of things that Sylvester did, but it's not that Sylvester is black. The current mayor that we have is one incompetent. I don't want to say what else, in my humble opinion. And it's not because of anything other than what he does. Let's start getting there and stop trying to make it a DEI issue. If you don't like what Finney did, go ahead and state that. But don't go out there, my brother, and make it a racial issue, a DEI issue, because it would make one just as willfully ignorant as all the others that are trying to promote that thing. Your last comment, Bard, before I move on.
Can I agree with you on that? That's what I am saying, is that Finner made the scapegoat of this thing. He's the scapegoat, and Turner's the incompetent one. Finner's he's the guy they're going to throw away in the trash now. And Whitmire's incompetent too. But can you imagine if you had Sheila Jackson Lee in there? Can you imagine the cover-up that would continue from Turner to Sheila Jackson Lee? At least Whitmire is turning this thing upside down and trying to do the right thing.
And again, you can not like Sheila Jackson Lee because of her the issues that she believes in, and that is definitely justifiable. But when it comes to competency, Sheila Jackson Lee is a very competent, smart person. Now, you may not like her policies, but she's a very competent, smart woman. And that goes for a lot of our leaders right now. We may not like their policies, but they're smart. Go ahead.
She was recently on it. I think it was Booker T. Washington High School when they had the eclipse, and she was saying the moon was made out of gas. I mean, come on, she's incompetent. You gotta stop defending.
Bard. Again, things out of context or whatever. But anyway, Bard, let me go to Donald. But thank you, Bard. And by the way, in case you ended the discussion saying something that I appreciate. So you take care. We'll talk later.
All right.
Bye. Let's go to Donald. Come on in, Donald. Brother Donald, you're on.
Good morning. Good morning, Egberto. How are you today?
I am fine, my brother. Talk to me.
You know how you eat a hooey sandwich? One bite at a time, and you keep the smile on your face.
There you go. There you go.
But yes, that is why you went into engineering, because nobody can take your numbers away. Numbers are numbers, and they are fact, not data. Numbers, and all we cared about was your stamp. We just wanted you to put the stamp on the print, and tell us, yes, this will all do. Then we go destructive, non-destructive testing, and we get it done. But you knew as a young man that you had to go into something that was fact-based because of the difference or whatever, however you want to put it, that you are from the whole.
Right.
And that's why you were successful. Now, The Man in the Mirror is a Michael Jackson song, but if people would listen to that song and analyze it, the world would be a better place because the change starts with you.
Amen.
And looking in the mirror. But on the schooling, isn't it funny how we have, where it's supposed to be integrated, but isn't there still some areas in Houston and everything else that seem pretty privileged because there's people living right down the street and they used to ship people 20 miles, 30 miles, and yet these people still have their own districts, their own schools, and all this other stuff. And are there still magnet schools available for people?
Yes, they are. And in fact, I had a nephew that my wife's nephew that was in one of those magnet schools, and that was one attempt at making the schools better. Yeah, but there are pros and cons. But yes, they are. But you are absolutely correct. I mean, the thing about it is, give me your zip code, I tell you how good your school is. That's a sad thing, but that's the truth.
But no, that's it. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Other than that, have a good one.
You too, Donald. Thank you so kindly for your call. Let's go to Brother Tag. Come on in, Tag.
Morning, Egberto.
Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
Have you talked about or read anything about Exxon takeover of Pioneer Oil?
No, I have not. Now you're going to give me some work to do, though. I'll have to go look into that.
Yeah, through the hearings in Washington on that takeover, which they're going to allow Exxon to take over Pioneer Oil, they discovered that the CEO of Pioneer Oil was colluding with Saudi Arabia to keep oil prices artificially high.
Wait a minute. Yes, sir. And that's what I'm covering today. I kind of got mixed up. Okay. I was supposed to cover that. Congress urged to tax big oil. Yeah, it's true. It is true. Yeah. Okay. So much on the mind. Yeah.
I just read, in addition to this, they're finding out that our inflation since Biden has been in office is up about a third just due to that collusion between Pioneer Oil and the Saudi Arabia. A full third of the inflation is due to that collusion. And so any right winger that wants to come on your show and talk about how bad inflation is, they need to know that this is being done manipulation by big business. And that's the bottom line. Biden's been fighting this all the way.
Tag. I don't know if you've noticed. We've been talking about that. I brought some some video from Katie Porter, who proved that 50% of the inflation when it was at 9 point something percent was 100% corporate greed. Okay. But here's the thing about it. Yesterday on my show, on my 3:00 show, I did a piece on how the price of oil made it into inflation, how the price of oil, the false inflation created by oil, by the increased price of oil, actually caused grocery store bills and everything else to go up. I went through that yesterday, and then I brought in the article that title "Congress Urged to Tax Big Oil for Price Fixing and Issue Every American a Refund." Okay, and sometimes I think about our listeners, you and others, that somehow we're always on the same damn wavelength, because that is one of the articles and topics in my newsletter this morning. So if you got my newsletter at 5 this morning, you'll see that topic in that newsletter.
I thought it was time to get it on the air here, and also to make sure that we're getting the word out that inflation is not because of Joe Biden.
Right.
And
Well,
now the federal government has decided that they would let this sale to ExxonMobil go through, Pioneer Oil, as long as that CEO, maybe Sheffield, somebody like that, as long as he is not going into, he's banned from the business now. He cannot be part of ExxonMobil, and he's out of Pioneer. So there are consequences for these people who are colluding to raise our prices. Yeah, which is a good thing. Yeah, that the government's doing.
You nailed it, Tag. You nailed it. And again, we covered that on my program, my 3:00 program yesterday. And what I think I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and cut that piece out and make it an independent segment and maybe play it here, not tomorrow, but Friday. Because tomorrow is Neil Aquino's day, and play it on Friday. But you nailed it. The price of oil, it has its genesis in, or rather, the inflation is not something because of a shortage. Inflation can be understood when there's shortage of services and products. But when there's a false shortage, that inflation is human made. And I think it should be illegal. And that is exactly what he did. You're absolutely right, Tag. Anything else before we move on?
Well, just the idea that when people want to blame inflation on Biden, the only way that can be construed as true is if they say that the big business wants Biden out of office, like they wanted Jimmy Carter out of office. Right. So what do? They crank up inflation, they crank up prices to make the president look bad, and then everybody points their finger at the president. It's like, because he's doing stuff that big business does not want done, just like Trump said he was going to do. But Trump never did it. But Biden has been doing it, and it shows with as much as they're fighting all this stuff. So I think people need to remember that. So thanks for the platform, Egberto.
Thank you, my brother. You have a great one, Tag. And it looks like the feed is it's still not working. I got a message from Melissa that said I think she couldn't get onto the feed, but I went ahead and put it on the YouTube feed as well. All right, let's go to Brian.
True. That is true. Okay. Yeah, our live stream is not working at the moment. We had some issues with the server overnight, and says it just stopped in the middle of whatever it was doing. So I had a heck of a time getting it back online. So I'm working on the streams now.
Okay, thanks, my man. All right, let's go to Brian. Come on in, Brian. How are you doing today, my dear brother?
Good, doing good. How are you?
I'm fine, my brother. Talk to me.
Okay, now, which president has the most money as of right now? That'd be Trump, right?
I don't think so, but let's make your case. Let's say it's Trump.
Okay, yeah, it is Trump. He's worth a few billion, right? Thanks to left wing, kicking him off of Twitter. But President Bush, he got the most problems out of being rich. Right? Nobody, he owned the Texas Rangers, which in actuality he only owned 6%. But when he was campaigning to run for president, he owned all of the Texas Rangers, and he was one of these rich old white men. Right? Now, how much is Bill Clinton worth?
I don't know.
80 million.
Okay.
How much is Obama worth?
I don't know.
70 million.
Okay.
70 million. Remember Bill Maher? He was the poster child for left wing. Yeah. Yes. How much is he worth?
I don't know.
40 million.
Okay.
Where did he get his money? He owns most of the New York Mets. How much is Hillary Clinton worth right now today?
I don't know.
30 million.
Okay.
Daughter worth. Chelsea Clinton.
Don't know.
$6 million. Okay. What have they done for their money?
Let me hear your point now.
That is the point. What have they done for their money?
Oh, okay. Look, you are not going to get anything. You're not going to get any argument out of me for that at all. You won't. I mean, I don't see, like I tell you, right? there are a lot of things that a lot of us, when we sit down and figure out who and how folks got their wealth, is really questionable. And, I'm surprised he didn't bring up Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders is probably worth, I don't know, $8-10 million, but he wrote books, he did all these kinds of things. And I'm not anti-wealth. I'm anti how you got it, which is, I think, what you are saying as well, and which we would be in total agreement. If you did it by doing favors and things that are not your work and worth, that's an issue, right? So I don't have a problem with that, Brian. I think we're in the same wavelength, sir.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders is worth about $6.6 million.
Yeah, there you go.
What has his job been?
Selling a lot of books. Selling books.
But he's also a politician.
That's true.
So all the politicians that I've spoke about, they haven't done anything. They're supposed to serve the people. Yet I don't have $6.7 million.
You know what? Guess what, Brian? I think you deserve a lot more money than I think you have. And if you follow the policies that we kind of support here, the pie would be spread out in a much more equitable manner. So you keep hanging out with us, because that's what we have planned. All right, brother?
Yeah.
Take care now. You have a good one, sir. You have a great one, brother. Peace. All right, let's see. Is that another call, or can I go on?
Oh, it's another call, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead and put him through. All right.
Yeah. All right, caller. Who am I speaking to?
Hello?
Whoever. Yeah, go ahead. You're on. Anthony, you're on. Come on.
Okay. I'm just making sure it's me. So, real quick, I know you're about to end the show. You just had a caller 2 calls back talking about inflation being oil manipulated with Saudi Arabia, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Your caller found one person, Katie Porter, whoever the heck he said her name was, to account for, 0.3% of the inflation. What number did you say we were at? About 9 at the time?
At the time we were at 9%, and half of that was caused by corporate greed.
Okay, but what about the other half? And then
the other half was caused. I put it this way. Let me explain. I call all of it corporate greed, because a lot of the other issues were things like supply chain issues. In other words, we couldn't get the product from China and Vietnam to the United States because of COVID, and that created a supply chain issue, which means there were shortages in the United States. Supply and demand meant then that prices would go up. But why did we have a supply chain problem? We had a supply chain problem because of just-in-time inventory that was created by the corporate sector. Why was it that created by the chain sector? They did that to save themselves some money, and in the process caused inflation with that neglect in having a viable alternative if there's a hurricane, if there's a pandemic or whatever. So all of it was caused by corporations.
So
go ahead.
So all of it was corporate greed. Okay, so you can go and look and find data or some story. Or
no, sir. I don't need an expert for this. I just gave you.
You're fooling yourself if you think it was all corporate greed.
Let me tell you. I just gave you the answer, and that you can go ahead and look up on your own. I am saying the reason that you had a supply chain problem is that we didn't have the supplies. The reason you had the issue with oil prices,
none of it happened because we were just giving money out left and right.
No, that's not it. Not because there's a money supply mean that we have to bring prices to match the money. That's what the corporate sector believe. That if there's money in people's pockets, we're going to raise the prices to meet the money. In a free enterprise system, whenever there is a shortage, you get high prices. We never had shortages. I got to go, my brother. Anyway, folks, to the studio real quick.
Nope, nothing for me.
Chuck?
Rick called and he wanted to know who would be your dream candidate for president.
I got to think about that. Anyway, folks, thank you so kindly for spending with us. Love all my callers. Love all my listeners. Got to get out of here. Please go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter to get the topics we didn't cover today. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics and Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.